All right, so welcome back into the Metaverse. Today we're going to be diving into something unique on the aspect of Phygital. Now, you've heard me talk about this before, the physical digital approach toward fashion, jewelry, luxury items, all those kind of things that could make their way not only into the Metaverse, but also into the actual physical world, and dive in a little deep. I think this is going to be a fun one for sure. My name is Paul Barrow. Welcome back to Metaverse Insider. Joining me today is Ms. Francine Ballard, who is the CEO over at a company and a project called MetaGolden. Great to have you on the show, Francine.
Hi, Paul. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
Excellent. So let's go into first MetaGolden. We do a ton of study here on NFTs, the evolution of what we see in the physical digital space. We've covered everything from Metaverse Fashion Week to a lot of the tech and the new projects that are really going in this direction, from gaming and NFTs. You guys are going a little different direction with MetaGolden. Give our audience, and think of our audience as sophisticated NFT and Metaverse insiders, and then people who are just now learning about Metaverse and NFTs for the first time. Talk to me about what you guys are doing.
Yeah, for sure. So just first off, I love CPI. I love what you're doing. Your whole platform is outstanding. And I think it's just such a blessing that you all reached out to me because I've become such a huge fan. It's really hard to get news and information that's relevant to you in the space just because it's not mainstream yet. So I've really enjoyed hearing your analysis and look forward to hearing more on that. But just to give you a sense of what we're doing, we are pairing physical assets with digital ones. We entered the space about 1.5 years ago, so we really have a first mover advantage in this regard. We started in jewelry, 18 karat jewelry. I think you'll see on some of the models there. I'm also wearing that necklace. It's inspired by blockchain code, so it is actually code. And, I just felt strongly that, this would be a very powerful technology really before it kind of came to the masses via NFTs. And I started creating, physical assets that were tied to digital ones. And we moved from jewelry into art and into now fashion with House of Web3. It's been an interesting ride, but the consumer seems to be pretty interested and enamored with the concept. So we'll see where it goes.
I think I'm intrigued. We've covered, as I mentioned earlier, Metaverse Fashion Week. We talked to the Boson team a little bit about how Phygital and the evolution of what we might see in the physical fashion space, along with art, as well as jewelry. But also you look at everything from the luxury goods items, whether it's, bags or watches, etc. When you look at an NFT tied to a physical item, how do you guys interpret that in terms of not only functionality, but how would it create a little bit of a value spectrum there for both the physical item as well as the NFT itself? Kind of explain how that's going to work with you guys.
So I feel strongly, and I always have, that our digital identities are going to be increasingly more important and more, more dominant in our lives and our lifestyles. I have an 8-year-old and a 13-year-old who essentially live in the metaverse, on Roblox. And my 8-year-old would rather spend money on her, furnishing her digital house in Adopt Me than a Barbie. So it's not, she's metaverse native, and this is the world she's growing up in. And, same thing for my 13-year-old. I think adults and, anything beyond Gen Z, they're slowly being exposed to this. But I think also 2023 is I think going to be the year of mass adoption in terms of NFTs. Like, it's not just a buzzword anymore. And I think, even though the market has dropped significantly, where sort of like these like generative collections, PFPs and what have you,
Right.
I think a lot of that was just kind of like the initial hype of like, wow, what is this? What is this? And seeing people make so much money and the FOMO. But there is real value to that. And I think that the rest of the world is waking up to that fact. And so I think moving forward, when you talk about value, the real value is pairing both the digital and the physical. And I've always sort of seen it that way. When I entered the space, there was the word Phygital didn't exist. And now I feel like it's just such people want to like vomit when they hear it because it's just so overused. But I do think there is true value in that, because I think being able to pair a digital and a physical asset together obviously just magnifies the value of that object. And it can be,
I like.
the thing is, it's a different interpretation. So
Mhm.
so for us, we pair the jewelry with digital art. So you saw some of
Right.
those NFTs where the jewelry moves within the art, and there's different interpretations of it. So they're all limited collections, and the artists actually, I let them run wild. I choose the artist,
Mhm.
and then I let them give their interpretation of what it is. And so it becomes valuable from that standpoint as art, I think. But then, there are other partnerships we're doing with digital assets like wearables, which I think is really interesting, and that's sort of where we're pushing forward in the metaverse and gaming and spaces.
Interesting you bring up the artist collaborations because that is something I do think we are really at a new entry point for how art is going to be created in the future, both from an aspect of not only the tool sets, but also the artists themselves are going to kind of redefine how they create their own works of art, as well as with partnerships like what you guys are doing. We had BT Music on here from the Gala team just last week, and if you follow BT, his whole idea around music is really pretty dynamic in the essence of what music has been in the past. It really does tie in that new added element from the physical and the metaverse aspect of it from a design standpoint. When you guys are selecting artists, how do you go about that? Because this is probably something new for a lot of artists and even designers. How did
Yeah.
they approach it? What's the kind of the shtick that you talk to them about getting them to go this direction?
I don't have to convince anyone to work with us anymore, but it was different in the beginning, and I will say that so when I entered this space, just to back up, like I was like dying to buy an NFT when when it was explained to me, and this is about 2 years ago, and I everywhere I looked, it was just kind of like robots and uh, like
Right.
rockets, ships, and I don't know. I mean, so
Apes.
when I went to do my first collection, I wanted to do it with a real artist because to me that was always where the value was. Like, and so
Hmm.
I started looking at other successful NFT collections, and just to give you a sense of like where the market was at that time, I'm looking on one of the big leaderboards in terms of like which collections are leading, and it was like Crazy Skulls, Mutant Kongs, Wonky Stonks, Fud Monsters, Crypto Moms, free to mint for all crypto dad holders, Stripperville, sewer rats, like all these were like PFP collections, and I was just like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a point of entry for women. And so, how I went about choosing artists, it really was very organic because I was living in the space in Clubhouse at the time, and so I was meeting virtually all of these digital creators, and so it really was organic in the sense that I just followed and engaged with people whose art appealed to me initially. And we've all kind of come up together in the space. So people who really had no recognition before there was this medium for digital art now are huge. I mean, like now I'm, talking to Siobhan Wong and other, big creators, people who have really made names for them in the space. But it's only because like we all are kind of tied together through this common love of the platform that and
Yeah.
we all truly believe in the space, and I think that's the thing.
Well, and I look at, I'm a small art collector, and I've been trying to figure out a way to get to some of these artists from an NFT side of things. I like what you're doing with art in the sense that there is a NFT connectivity element. And I think a lot of people don't realize that the physical aspect of art has its attributes that are quite unique and different. It's really kind of what the art industry has been built on. Same thing with jewelry, same thing with
Yeah.
watches, all those kind of things. But I could also look at this from a luxury brand standpoint and think of, hey, if you have a Rolex, if it's a Daytona, a certain model that you want to go, whether it's a Steve McQueen model or something, and you had an NFT comparable asset that could rise in value. I'm kind of curious how the market will respond to this in the future. What are your thoughts in terms of value? I was just looking at just like you were mentioning, just the list. Here this is the WGMI on NFTs. This goes with CryptoPunks, of course, right now leading the way. Bored Ape in there, Mutant. Most of these are not necessarily gone into full-fledged artists outside of Azuki or and even Moonbirds to a certain extent. I would still say them to be more of a pop culture brand. of what Kevin Rose is doing over there. But my point is when you look at the value of what an NFT could be in relationship to what the physical value could be on a piece of art or a piece of jewelry, do you think we'll see unique market prices develop for both? Because like right now, the Rolex market is out of control, even though it's softened a little bit. But could you imagine an NFT for that? Same thing with certain jewelry, same thing with certain art pieces. Explain to me how you think those markets will fare over the years as it starts to develop.
Yeah, so a couple of things there. I mean, listen, I think that blockchain technology is so transformative that at some point it's not a question of like, will they pair or how will they pair? Like everyone will pair. So any appreciable asset, any luxury valuable asset will be paired with an NFT, if not just for authentication purposes, like what we're doing with Sotheby's. Then for, it automatically, I think, lifts the value just based on that, because if someone gives you a certificate of authenticity, it's like a lot of the art, the auction, the galleries and auction houses now give you your, whatever it is, this paper authenticity. That is a thing of the past. Like everything will be on chain. And so, we're working with innovators in the space. We work with a digital technology platform called Smart Stamp, which actually creates a digital fingerprint on the art. So that when you transfer it as an asset, it's recorded on the blockchain. So, I mean, I'm not saying they're doing this, but it opens up enormous potentials in terms of not just royalties for the creators, but royalties for the owners, which is mind-boggling.
Exactly.
So I think, and I've done a lot of interviews on that. We were mentioned in something with Tiffany's recently on some jewelry thing, but I just think that this is coming. It's inevitable, and people need to understand it, learn, and prepare for it. And it's a thing. It's happening.
I want to unpack a couple of things you mentioned there, because I think this is very important for new people, maybe just now getting into NFTs and understanding how smart contracts work. One of the things that NFTs essentially do for creators is it ties a potential for a residual, think of it as a royalty, etc., back to the creator forever. Because if you buy a comic today, if it's a physical comic and you trade it, the originator of that comic doesn't really get anything. The open market will, value the trade value difference, and the collector is the one who benefits. That's about to change, I think, with music. We're going to see that obviously change in the art spectrum, maybe even in the fashion spectrum, where fashion starts to go up in value, even though there's certain fashion lines that do go up in value. But when you look at the authenticity side of this, because this is one of the things that I think I start to stumble with in understanding how this can be, because I haven't seen a technology yet that can truly tie the authenticity of a physical device into the blockchain to where authenticity valuation can truly be linked. Are you guys seeing any kind of advancement there yet, or do you think there's an opportunity? Tell me about this.
I'm
very interested.
So there's a lot of people, and we're very fortunate to be working with some incredible disruptors and innovators in the space right now. For the Sotheby's collaboration, which we did, which we can get into later, we partnered with Boson, and I know Justin Bannon, and I don't know, you should have him on the show because he's brilliant. But what they're doing is they're building an open commerce infrastructure built with smart contracts that with game theory encoded. So it's fairly complicated, but simple when you think about it. They've built in this escalation to independent dispute resolvers, so that you can actually transfer a physical asset with a digital one with perfect simplicity, and they handle all of that. And I think that's sort of where the industry's headed. And just to make this a little less complicated, because the words sound, crazy to some people. Think of it as, and he'll kill me for saying this because it oversimplifies, way oversimplifies what he's doing. But think of it as an eBay really based around blockchain. So the possibilities are really endless when you think of it that way. And what they're doing for us they're minting our the Phygital item, the lot that we have for sale with Sotheby's in an auction to starting tomorrow, which is the first of its kind. It's the first phygital item ever sold at auction. So we've done, all sorts of different collaborations, and I think that auction houses have been very adventurous and definitely ready to kind of like explore NFTs. They've definitely, given their seal of approval. I think both houses even have VC funds backing sort of the technology around NFTs, and they definitely acknowledge NFTs and digital art as legitimate at this point. But this is interesting because Boson will provide an interesting use case of how that item can be resold in the secondary market. Because, there's a digital fingerprint associated with the physical item, and you can actually buy and sell the item many times. It can trade hands many times without the physical item ever leaving the original owner until someone wants to actually claim the asset. So then it's just a question of how quickly it appreciates it and how much, at what rate. So I don't know if that answers your question, but there definitely are people who
I think
innovating in the space.
Right, I get where that's going. Obviously, this is going to be interesting to kind of see that really take place in the art world, the jewelry world, maybe in the collectibles world, in a sense of what I think we're seeing already. And I think you're right. One thing that we're seeing around the NFT space right now is kind of multi-dimensional in the sense that in the first, it's kind of like the internet. I mean, in the first era of Web 1.0, we had pretty basic websites. There wasn't much to them. Same thing with NFTs. And eventually they became very, very utility based. And eventually they became e-commerce, which was, income generating, massive, unbelievable utility of what we've seen. And I think that's what we're going to see with the NFT space inside, and also how this is going to connect to the metaverse. All right, so you've talked a little bit about Sotheby's and the connection there. Let's talk about the blockchain. Obviously, you guys are working with Ethereum. There's also Solana out there. You could go on a million different ways here in terms of a solution, especially around metaverse and connectivity to NFTs. Why go the Ethereum route?
We are on Polygon. We were on Ethereum until we redid our website. It's Web3 compatible, and our entire NFT ecosystem is on Polygon. We use MATIC.
Polygon. So on the layer 2. Okay.
I think Polygon's where it's at right now. I mean, Meta is building with Polygon. Boson, I know, is on Polygon. I think that they're doing really interesting things, and I had the good fortune of meeting them at NFT NYC. Some of their coders and people, and I just think they're onto something. Layer 2 is so much faster, and
for sure,
you still have the benefits of Ethereum with the secondary market. I just think it's just an easy solution right now. And so that's, for that reason, and because it is eco-friendly, and that's incredibly important, not just to me, but to most of our partners, I think that it's definitely the way. And, it was critically important when we chose a backend. So our website, we rebuilt after about a year, and just to make it effortless, make it turnkey, because one of the lessons that we learned with our first drop was we oversold the collection, and it was a terrible disaster. But because there are so many pitfalls with crypto, we were there early, and it was just moving so fast that we didn't realize the demand for the product, and it sold out within 2 hours. And then we were on a platform called Stripe, where we were actually selling both products simultaneously. So we were selling the contract on the NFT side on the on OpenSea, but then we were simultaneously selling in the real world, and I was trying to onboard people as fast as possible. We thought it would be like a 2-week process, and it was literally, I think we sold like 500 NFTs in 5 minutes or something crazy like that.
So you mentioned the platform there. I just want to make sure I heard that right. Did you say Strike or Stripe?
Well, so it was that was our credit card payment processing platform. Stripe. Okay. Yes.
So you were selling a traditional e-commerce. Okay. So it was a traditional e-commerce model and also a blockchain model at the same time. Interesting. Okay.
I was trying. So it was so fast, and I really wanted to. I felt strongly about onboarding people into non-crypto natives into the space.
Right.
And so we spent months leading up to this drop. And lo and behold, the night before I was like, are we going to sell any? And so you just never know. You just never know.
Yeah.
We oversold it massively and got kicked off the platform because I had to issue hundreds of thousands of dollars in
in
refunds.
refunds.
So the
Okay.
next thing I did obviously was build like a really badass website. Oh, sorry, that's my dogs. Where, you know, where the NFT process was seamless.
Yeah.
And, you know, the customer would receive their NFT immediately. And that's what we have now. And
Yeah.
also the crypto conversion issue, you know, we had to make sure that, you know, the crypto converted to dollars immediately. And there's not this fluctuation of like, how high is Ethereum now? Or where are we in the market? And how do we pay our vendors based on the contracts that we've sold? And, you know, it's very complicated, but we've now figured all of that out, hopefully. And then it'll change again as soon as we figure it out.
Well, that is one of the things that obviously I think with a lot of crypto native companies and initiatives as they start to transition into, you know, the metaverse of value, especially around things like Polygon and other chains out there that are kind of moving this direction in terms of instantaneous, you know, resolution for transactions like what we're talking about. It'll be interesting how those start to really develop in the future, because I'm finding more and more, you know, I teach courses mostly with business people who are trying to figure out how to utilize not only NFTs, but just crypto in general, all the way down to just transacting in USDC. So they're learning, and I think enterprises are going to start to really embrace this as we start to really kind of develop up to the next levels, which will connect the dots,
right.
you know, for all this.
And I think you nailed it earlier when you said it's like the internet, you know, when it started, and it's just this nascent kind of, you know, network right now. But you know, as it gets built out, things will sort of crystallize, and it's really just sort of inventing itself right now as it goes.
No doubt. Yeah, we are, you know, fortunately I've had a chance to live through this, so I've seen, you know, how this happens, and all the markers are there for an absolute run up in terms of adoption. And I think especially with the demographics, if you think about just the demos that we're dealing with, Gen Z, young millennials, and even to a certain extent the older millennial audience that is really ramping up in terms of investments, looking at crypto in general, which gets them crypto curious and then brings them into, you know, kind of a metaverse mind of understanding, oh, this is how this connects. And that's when
it's a magical moment when someone understands. It really is, isn't it? It's like a rolling blackout, and all of a sudden the lights come back on.
Exactly.
It's
exactly.
magical.
Well,
it's what I love most.
You got to go down the rabbit hole. You have to. You know, you have to go. Everybody has their own rabbit hole experience, and then, you know, then they end up watching this show. Hopefully.
Exactly.
Let's talk about Metaverse a little bit in gaming. So we talked to a ton of game developers, really insightful, you know, teams that are building some pretty interesting projects out there. I'm always intrigued in terms of value of NFTs inside games. For the most part, games are developing their own NFT ecosystem. Maybe they're doing some cross-chain functionality. Of course, there are brand placements coming on. We're seeing that with Sandbox and others. How do you guys see MetaGolden plugging into a metaverse and gaming ecosystem from a value proposition standpoint?
Yeah, so that's huge for us. I mean, we have a very clear vision, a roadmap in that regard. We have partnered with Decentraland for the first, and I love I listened to the podcast where you talked about Metaverse, and you called them like that. They were like gangster move with the Metaverse Fashion Week. I think it's true, and I think they're smart to go after women because, you know, like no one else is doing it. Those are some of our wearables that we sell in Decentraland. And yes, we have a very strong affinity and affiliation with them. We partner with them. They partner with us. So we participated in the very first Fashion Week. We most recently participated they had Metaverse Art Week with our Sotheby's collaboration. We did a big installation that was representative of the ring. I don't know if you have that footage, but it was really incredible. And moving forward, I'll be curating a lot of the fashion collections and deciding which established designers and also which emerging designers this and how. So I'm pretty, I'm pretty in deep with Decentraland in terms of like
Very
our
cool.
partnership and where we're headed, and I'm really excited about that. They're they're actually building a space for us in you know that will incorporate our new community NFT, which is a DAO concept called House
Right.
of Web3 or HW3. So they'll be a big part of it. That'll be a hub for our DAO community.
All right, so let's take a break and thank our sponsor, Gala Games. If you guys are looking at diving into the metaverse in a deep way and really understanding how the gaming ecosystem is working, make sure and check out Gala Games. They've got a ton of new games coming out, including Spider Tanks. We just covered Superior not long ago. Make sure to go to app.gala.games for more information. We'll leave a link below in the description. I want to get into HW3, but while we're on that point right there in terms of how art and these events are starting to roll out, are you guys doing anything or planning anything for Art Basel like in Miami?
So I'm doing an activation with BFF, which is Blockchain Friends Forever, in October around HW3. And so we don't have, MetaGolden doesn't have a big event planned at Art Basel, but I was there last year. I'm always at Art Basel. I'm a huge art collector anyway. This piece I got at Art Basel several years ago. I'm huge. I love art. So my husband and I are always there. But last year was the first time you really saw a lot of participation from Web3 and blockchain companies. So I'll be there for sure. I'll probably speak on a few panels, but MetaGolden is not doing an activation there. Not right now, at least. Like the space moves fairly quickly, but right now we're just planning on supporting BFF in what they're doing, and also kind of jumping in where we can with my crypto community at various events.
Cool. So, okay, now let's jump into House of Web3. Explain to me what it is, what the initiative is. How are you guys going to plug this into your overall brand component?
Yeah, so it's an easy kind of pivot, I guess. We have now a successful e-commerce, or I should say v-commerce platform. I think that's like a buzzword. And so we're just kind of leveraging that. And now we're starting to really, really focus on the community and building the community. I strongly believe that, this Web3 notion of, community involvement and participation is going to dictate the next iteration of what retail looks like. And so I'm sort of like, I'm really focused on that with HW3, and we've partnered with the first 100 members. It's a member DAO and a member NFT and membership NFT, and those members will be comprised of the 50 most powerful Web2 fashion players, which is sort of like my former life as a fashion editor. So bringing in people from fashion houses or editors or stylists, people who are very influential in the space currently. And then also the 50 most powerful Web3 players. So people from luxury digital fashion houses like Ouroboros and Republique. Right. And then, I think it's so much bigger than fashion, really. We've pulled, Justin Bannon from Boson in. We've pulled a lot of really people who are doing really interesting things, disruptors in the space, who I think will actually impact fashion more than the world understands right now. And so we want all those people sort of like in the fold, and then those people will benefit collectively through their participation and involvement. And, it'll be interesting to see where it goes, because it really will be owned by its own community, owned and operated ultimately. Right. I mean, it won't be a liquidity token immediately. We'll start with just governance, but then we'll move into probably liquidity early 24.
Interesting. Okay. I'm always intrigued in kind of the journey, especially with Web3 native and Metaverse native companies and initiatives of kind of the evolution of how the product rolls out. Typically, we see it in the gaming ecosystem. There's only a handful of companies that really have real strategies around Web3 and the evolution of where they're going to be at in the metaverse in the coming years. So it's always fun to watch those. Francine, when you guys got started, what was the framework? Did you raise capital? What was the framework to be able to get MetaGolden off the ground?
I'm going to say this, and it's kind of embarrassing, but people might get a kick out of it. So my husband's in oil and gas, and I asked him if I could invest in Ethereum. He said no. So I didn't want it to be a thing, like a thing. So I sold some of my handbags and I bought Ethereum. And it was
Good for you.
at the time when Ethereum was running hard. And so I doubled my money, sold a few more things, doubled it again. And I used that to build a Wix website. I did it. I've bootstrapped
I love it.
everything. We have no investors. We're cash flow positive. I got really lucky on the timing, I think. And then, we sold out the first collection we did. So that was another, we sold almost 1,000 NFTs at, 500 a pop, or it was at the time 0.16 ETH. But so we've been very fortunate. We haven't had to go to market for investment, but that's coming because, we have some really, really big partnerships that I want to make sure are executed properly in the works. So we're going to have to build out the team and make sure we have the right resources to push forward.
It's great to see startups like that because, we talk to a lot of investment and VC houses here on our show quite often, and many of them are going into major projects where there's hundreds of millions of dollars flowing into blockchain. Some of them go to zero, some of them end up becoming, the next Polygon. The cool thing is there's a ton of startups right now. It reminds me a lot of the early days of the internet. And the only concern I have is I am a little bit cautious because obviously I lived through the dot-bomb era and I saw a lot of really good products and ideas, that did not do well, obviously, at that time. I feel like we're still going to have that. So it's going to be interesting to see not only companies, but also the innovators, because I think the innovators are probably even more so important in terms of really kind of bridging the gap, because there's such a narrative that you have to tell to bring people across the chasm, of really kind of getting them into the next layer. So, hey, listen, it's going to be fun to watch what you guys are doing. We're going to keep a close eye on METAGOLDEN and everything you guys are up to. Good luck on your launch at Sotheby's for sure. And thanks for coming in on the show today. You bet.
Thanks, Paul. It's been great.
Excellent. All right, so you guys are tuned in over on the podcast right now. Maybe after the shows, one of the things you can do, of course, is jump over here to the YouTube channel. We have two podcasts on the audio side. Obviously, the one you're listening to right now, Metaverse Insider, but we also have a show called Tech Path Crypto. Make sure and search that out if you are on the podcast app right now. Otherwise, if you're here on the YouTube channel, then you're all in one place. That's where all of our shows reside. Of course, you can catch that just at Paul Barron Network. And make sure and subscribe. Like a few videos. That way you get into the cycle around the YouTube algorithm, all that works in. And hopefully we'll get you on your education journey around not only Metaverse, crypto, but also the whole aspect of really how Web3 is changing business, our society. There's so many things that are really happening right now in the early technology phase of what we're talking about. If you guys want to reach me, it is out there on Twitter at Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on Metaverse Insider.